Okay, please take your seats. We're going to be starting right away. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone to beautiful Barcelona. Hola, bienvenidos a la hermosa ciudad de Barcelona. My name is Gabriela Barona and I will be moderating this session. I am a senior lecturer from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. I'm also associate dean for my faculty. And I am here in my role as a facilitator and as a developer of co-design tools. Yeah, today we are going to be speaking mostly in English because the event is in English, but I will try to introduce each part in English and Spanish. Voy a estar más que nada hablando en inglés, pero también hablo español, así que si tienen dudas, quieren hacer cualquier pregunta, pueden preguntar. También vamos a asegurarnos de que en la parte de codiseño donde van a estar trabajando en grupos haya facilitadores bilingües. Okay? So, yeah, I also want to remind you that this session is being streamed live and recorded. I know that you were advised of this at the moment of sign up. But I also want to take this opportunity to welcome the people that are watching us online. I would also like to introduce the co-organizers of this session. This has been a big effort by a group of people. One of them is David White from Mare, University of College Cork in Ireland, who is representing the Prep for Blue project. He's there saying hi. Hi, Dave. Then we have Alexandra Gerritsen and Sven Stemberg. Did I say that right? No, Stevener. Almost. Oh, okay. From GIZ, Germany, who manages some amazing German-African projects that are going to be presented later. Then we have Donaka Kindlon from Erin Innovation from Ireland, who is here representing the Empower Us project. Finally, we have Fanny Ramos from the Belmont Forum, who is the other co-organizer. Hello, Fanny. Okay, so why are we here today? The UN Ocean Framework and the EU's mission to restore our ocean and waters by 2030 highlights the key role that diverse stakeholders from ocean communities have in this global pursuit. Co-design principles can provide learnings around challenges 9 and 10. They can be an effective collaboration pathway between science, policy, and society within the context of global policy frameworks, such as the UN Ocean Decade. So we're here to discuss those learnings around those two challenges. Challenge 9 is skills, knowledge, and technology. And challenge 10 is to change humanity's relationship with the ocean. So this challenge highlights the importance of integrating indigenous knowledge and also traditional knowledge from the communities that are closest to the ocean. And try to integrate all this wisdom into the scientific investigation. Furthermore, public mobilization and engagement is one of Mission Ocean's cross-cutting enablers that will help protect and restore degraded ecosystems, eliminating pollution, and making the blue economy carbon neutral and circular. We also have the Mir Wissen initiative here that it's very much centered around co-design. And it tries to find solutions to societal problems and to support partnerships of equals. So what is co-design? I think that many of you here might know this by now. Maybe you don't, so I'd like to provide this introduction. So co-design is becoming a bit of a buzzword, and there are many, many levels to it. And I would like you to aspire to make the best of this methodology, and we're going to share some inspirational case studies for you. Co-design is an approach that seeks active involvement of all stakeholders in all the project phases, mostly sharing and decentralizing power. There are many methodologies for co-design, and facilitation is a key skill. And if it's done correctly, you can source from other types of knowing, being, and relating. You can increase stakeholder buy-in, increase the chances of innovative solutions, and enable long-term sustainable deployment of projects. And also, co-design just feels better, because you make allies, you learn, you establish genuine relationships, you spend time in the water, doing amazing things in connection to nature. So in co-design, the journey is just as important as the destination. In this slide, I want to show some of the levels that you can have. In many projects, like historically, Western science was done with very little consultation. But then that started changing, and participants are informally asked about their views on the project, their ideas, their concerns. But you can go deeper, and you can try to involve stakeholders to providing input into decision making. So that's when you start sharing power. But you can also go deeper in that, because somehow the agenda was defined many times by the Western science institution. So if you provide them opportunity for participating in the agenda, in the design stages, you can go deeper in the co-design process. Finally, co-production is where participants are treated as equals and have an equal say in deciding project goals, outcomes, and help you set up the projects from the beginning, from the planning stages. So co-design is more than a process, it's a social movement focused on challenging and changing inequitable power structures. And again, it's not designing for people, it's designing with people. And for that to be effective, you need to plan it and budget accordingly, because all these people are giving you their time. So how are you going to compensate them for their time? You have to think of hospitality. In general, you can follow a methodology, but if you feel confident enough, you can break that methodology. So if you're starting, you have, there are many published methodologies that will give you some structure so that you don't get lost. But then when you're confident in it, you want to get rid of the methods and just create your own. Another important aspect of co-design is like, how will you hold safe and inclusive spaces? And for that, you need to make allies, you need to listen a lot, and you need to educate yourself on cultural practices of the area. Another aspect of co-design is for you to use your privilege. If you are a fully funded researcher, you are in a privileged situation, so you can uphold, empower, and protect those stakeholders that have less privilege. The other aspect that makes it super tricky is to address conflict, so not avoid conflict. It's like, and there are many methodologies that can help you address conflict when it arises. And the final thing that I would say is to spend time in the water, get wet. Yes? So I'm just going to share just a couple of images that show different co-design processes, just for the ones of you that haven't done it before. So this is a 5-stage process that I have designed called Design for Conservation. And in general, the steps in general are first reconnecting So building those relationships, reconnecting to yourself, to the community that you're designing with, and to the land or to the water that you're designing for. Then you would have to do a bunch of research, talk to a lot of people, and understand the problem, and understand the different visions of that problem. And you have to co-define that problem. You have to frame it collectively. That's also one of the most important aspects of co-design methodology, to do a collective framing. Then you're going to ideate some solutions, and you're going to propose them, pitch them, validate them with all the stakeholders involved. Then you're going to plan for impact. How are you going to measure? How are you going to know if what you're doing is it's in the right direction? And finally, you're going to understand how to deploy that project in a sustainable way. And sustainable means long-term with stakeholder buy-in. In general, you want to keep all the knowledge, the know-how, the money, the technologies in the hearts, the minds, and the pockets of the local community as well. So another excellent example of co-design is the methodology developed by Mir Wissen, where again you have 4 parts that are very, very similar to the other methodology that I showed. And you can actually download this booklet if you want to learn more about this process. So, with no further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Joe Appiot, who is the coordinator for marine, coastal, and island biodiversity in the Secretariat of the Convention of Biological Diversity. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I grab my remarks? Thank you so much. It seems I have to stand on one side or the other, so I'm going to pick this one. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Appiot. I'm the coordinator of the work on marine, coastal, and island biodiversity at the Convention on Biological Diversity Secretariat, or the CBD. It's really wonderful to be here with such inspiring change makers and experts that are passionate about the ocean, about making real change and real progress towards sustainability. My sincere thanks to our colleagues at Meerwysen, the Belmont Forum, Empower Us, and Prep for Blue for inviting me to address you here today. Apologies if I come across as a bit drowsy or tired. I had an overnight flight and I rolled in here with my bags, as you saw, so it certainly doesn't mean I'm not interested if you see me getting a bit sleepy looking, but certainly just the situation I'm facing right now. So nonetheless, I hope you find these remarks interesting and hopefully inspiring for the rest of the event. So our focus today is on the importance of co-designing science and policy at the societal interface, a topic that is really essential to achieving the ambitious goals and targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The Global Biodiversity Framework was adopted by the Conference of the Parties to the CBD in December 2022, and it contains the most ambitious set of global goals and targets for nature that we've ever seen. It sets out a roadmap to put humanity on a path towards a healthy and sustainable relationship with the natural world. The framework hosts the famous 30 by 30 target, calling for the conservation of 30% of marine and coastal areas by 2030. But it is much more than just 30 by 30. The framework reflects the need for a comprehensive and holistic approach and has critically important targets addressing things like ecosystem restoration, pollution, invasive species, climate change, just to name a few. The framework aims to pick up where the Aichi biodiversity targets left off. And I see there's people here that look much younger than me, so maybe you were in high school when the Aichi targets were adopted, but these were adopted in 2010 with a deadline of 2020, and they catalyzed enormous progress and helped to raise the political profile of biodiversity loss as a pressing global priority. However, none of the Aichi targets were fully achieved by 2020. So when parties to the CBD began the process to develop the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, there were some key lessons learned from the Aichi biodiversity targets that were at the forefront of these discussions and which are highly relevant for our discussions today. First, if we hope to make progress on improving the state of biodiversity in a long-term and sustainable manner, we must have real and meaningful integration of biodiversity conservation and sustainable economic growth as part of holistic planning. For too long, biodiversity has played second fiddle to a focus on economic growth and other political priorities. Indeed, progress has been made in better understanding and articulating the importance of healthy ecosystems for healthy economies, but if we hope to reverse major trends in ecosystem degradation, then we need to catalyze a much broader paradigm shift towards holistic science and policy that seeks out positive synergies for nature and people, rather than pitting the two against each other. This requires us all to consider a much broader range of issues, challenges, and needs than we are used to doing. We need to embed our efforts in the context of broader decision-making that must make difficult trade-offs, and we must speak to the issues of concern to the general public. The Global Biodiversity Framework emphasizes the importance of a human rights-based approach, respecting, protecting, promoting, and fulfilling human rights. These rights include not only the right to development, but also the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. We must take great care to balance the socioeconomic needs of today with the right of future generations to a healthy planet. Second, we need to do more to engage a much broader group of stakeholders in biodiversity positive actions as part of an all-of-society approach. It's no secret that robust stakeholder engagement is a key factor of success in developing and implementing science and policy, but the lack of progress in certain areas tells us that we need to bring a much wider cross-section of stakeholders into the fold and do so much earlier in the process. The time has long passed to continue preaching to the choir. Rather, we need to proactively reach out to those who have perhaps never considered themselves part of the environment or biodiversity world. And we need to do so in a meaningful way that engages stakeholders at the outset so that the work that we do reflects the needs, interests, and challenges of these actors and communities. The Global Biodiversity Framework itself recognizes that diverse value systems and concepts as being essential and an integral part of its successful implementation. I'm sure many of us have seen well-meaning and well-intentioned efforts towards stakeholder engagement fail to yield the fruits of their labor due to those stakeholders being engaged too late in the process. By instilling real co-design at the outset of the science and policy processes, we can ensure ownership of those stakeholders over the outcomes of the work and the relevance and applicability of the outcomes of that work to their respective areas of work. Finally, we've seen the importance of relying on local level action and communities as real change makers. The framework explicitly acknowledges the important roles and contributions of indigenous peoples and local communities as custodians of biodiversity and as partners in its conservation, restoration, and sustainable use. In fact, there is a specific target in the framework focused on ensuring that the best available data, information, and knowledge guide effective and equitable governance in integrated and participatory management of biodiversity, and that traditional knowledge, innovations, practices, and technologies of indigenous peoples and local communities are accessed with their free, prior, and informed consent. Local level stakeholders are perhaps one of our strongest and most reliable assets in making high-level political commitments, such as the Global Biodiversity Framework, real on the ground and in the water. We have many challenges ahead in achieving the goals and targets of the framework, but we also have a multitude of proven tools and solutions at our fingertips. And hopefully we will hear some of these today. And I now will turn over to the moderator to introduce some really interesting cases of people that do much more real on-the-ground work than I do, rather than sitting in these high meetings and talking about all the things that we hope these people are doing. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for the invitation as well.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was very inspiring. And now, passing to the next session, before we move on, I would like you to know that I'm going to be the timekeeper. So I have these beautiful signs that it's like, nice, 5 minutes, that's okay, 3 minutes, stop, okay? And I know I don't love this role, don't take it personally. But we have a packed agenda, and we want to make sure that everyone gets their chance to speak. So, setting the scene. We will now share 3 inspirational case studies that describe the successes and the challenges of co-design in the field. And we will have a chance to ask questions at the end of the 3 presentations. Okay, so maybe you might to write them down. And the first one is Professor Ronaldo Cristofoletti from Brazil, who will present Oceans Pact.
Hello, everyone. It's a huge pleasure to be here and representing the Oceans Pact project that comes under the Belmont Forum call for transdisciplinarity of the ocean. Let's set the scene first. What is the Oceans Pact? It came, as I just mentioned, in a call for transdisciplinarity for the ocean, and we joined 6 countries with case studies with the same goal. That is understanding conflict transformation for small-scale fisheries conflicts. And we got 6 countries involved: US, Norway, Sweden, India, South Africa, and Brazil, in my case, where I come from. And in all the cases, we are looking for how could we co-design from the beginning and understanding in that countries some conflict with small-scale fishery, trying to work a pathway for transformation of that conflict, and having learnings from local scale in each case study. So the case studies are not the same, so the conflicts are not the same, and we gave freedom for that, each country understand their conflict. And then now that we are in the last year of the project, understand what can we learn together for conflict transformation, as co-design, as co-production from all these cases, because we need to understand that we're talking from all then with small-scale fisheries, but we are saying about global north, global south, different cultural, social, economic reality. So the learnings are different. Talking about specifically from the Brazilian case study as one example, we applied the co-design from the design of the idea before the submission to now the delivery of the project. And in our case specifically, we had one approach. When you say about conflict, but conflict for who? Who would be us as researchers to define when submitting the project, what was the conflict to be transformed? So we designed the idea already inviting civil society, fisher community leaders, government representatives, and researchers from different areas, social areas, science, natural areas, together to design the project. Once it was approved, during the first year, we start from zero. And we had done a few workshops and online interviews. That was all during the pandemic, unfortunately. So we used a lot of the online tools to map with the fisheries communities and the managers of the marine protected areas what were conflicts on their point of view and not only on the scientific point of view. Based on that mapping of that at the end were 12 conflicts that were classified by then, we had a participatory workshop where we had done the prioritization of those conflicts in 3 regions of the coast, and the 3 regions gave the priority for the same conflict. Then after 1 year of this process, there we decided together and start as co-production to doing research on how to transform that conflict. In our case studies, they had chosen as conflict a legislation, a national legislation. So that was mandatory for us to keep working with researchers, local communities, managers from state level and national level, understanding also that in our reality at that moment 2 years ago was not easy due to the political situation of Brazil. But we kept through all the time with a maximum 2 or 3 months meeting of co-production, understanding that co-design and co-production means all equal, as was already presented and said, and the voices should always have the same height, the same weight there. what were learnings in this process for the Oceans Pact? I will start from Brazil, and then, as I said, we are now in a moment to compare projects. But I think focusing on the co-design as a tool to empower society, policy, researchers, is first understanding that all the voices must be listened, must have the same weight there. And if we need to listen that voices, we need to give proper time for it. And that is not always the scientific and academic time. We need to allow time for all the stakeholders to bring in their voice, to bring in their arguments. And we need a lot to work out our communication. And communication not only as academic publishing papers, but communication among different stakeholders. We have different languages. We use different concepts. We understand things a different way. A proper co-design demands empathy and citizenship. We need to put ourselves at the other one's place and always be able to listen from them, like in our case. It's from a local community leadership, from a small-scale fishery, to a conservation civil society organization or the government, most likely was never the same opinion. How do we communicate with respect, education, and have no bias in power of the decision? I used to say, and I will bring this as probably the main learning, that as was shown, and I love that figure, the co-design is a process. So understand this as a process, a continual process, dynamic, where we need to always be listening and adapting when necessary. That's important. And there are moments of outputs. During the process, it's impossible, from my point of view, that everybody feel comfortable all the time. If all the stakeholders are comfortable, something's wrong. We can bring different stakeholders together, specifically in this case, to work out a conflict, and everybody feel comfortable in all the meetings. But a successful design co-production process is that one that when you have an output, all the stakeholders agree with that output. Even if it was not what I wanted as a researcher at the beginning, or a government, or a civil society, but I respect the process, and I understand that the result was co-produced. And that means all the voices are in there. So we managed to get it, in our case, studies in the 5, and we are now trying to learn and to get insights how different cultures and reality can teach us more on that. So that was the example from the Oceans Pact that, as I mentioned, use the co-design from the beginning, and I will give my last few minutes. I will invite Eric from the Belmont Forum to come to the stage, because the Belmont Forum will now continue with this process for transdisciplinary and co-design. So please, Eric, you have the final 2 minutes to present what will be this new process. And I think that is an important point, as even saying as a researcher, that in the co-design for research, we are aligned with the funders. This is really important because they need to understand the dynamic of the process, because it's not linear.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry. Hello, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you that tomorrow at 1:15 in the main venue, in the Baltic Room, we will be having a scoping session for a new Belmont Forum funding opportunity that we nicknamed Oceans 2. It's following first Oceans opportunity of funding, a CRA at the Belmont Forum. And the name of our session is Towards a Scenario on the Global Ocean by 2050, the roles and places for biodiversity in future socio-ecosystems. And so the purpose of this session, which will last for about an hour and a half, will be to think collectively about what the perimeter of this collaborative research action will be, with funders, stakeholders, researchers in a co-design fashion. I've brought a few cards with the name of the session, the place and date, and we will be very happy to see you there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ronaldo. That was a very good speech on co-design, being a designer. I approve. So, yeah, it's very important to let go of your plans and embrace this uncertainty and go into the unknown, which is hard for scientists. So the next speaker is, the Empower Us project. So please welcome Vida Steiro and Beatriz Patraca, yes, Beatriz Patraca Divildocs from the Autonomous University of Barcelona.
Hello, thank you for coming and thank you for having us here presenting. My name is Vida Steiro.
And I'm Beatriz Patraca.
And together with a total of 16 partner organizations, we are part of the Empower Us project, which is an EU project that has the aim of empowering small coastal communities across Europe to ensure a sustainable and inclusive transition in coastal areas. There was supposed to be a map of something behind here, but I'm not sure if that's possible.
Oui, oral.
Yeah. It was supposed to like pop up, but that's okay. Yeah, so with empowerment in this project, we mean that it's a process through which actors gain the capacity to mobilize resources and institutions and through that achieve a goal. And with Empower Us, we have established 6 transition coastal labs. One behind that there is one in northern Norway, Spain, Cap de Cruz, in Ireland, and in Åland, Finland, in the Baltic Sea, yes. And then Cyprus and in the Black Sea, Bulgaria. And in each of these, as Ronaldo just talked about, co-design being part of every step of the project, leaving no one behind is a principle that is at the core of this project. So at the proposal stage, we have, or the project has involved local host organizations and researchers that are experienced in all of those regions from the proposal stage. So these are part of defining the challenges that the coastal communities are facing and that we are trying to solve together in a co-design process. So these host organizations are both, they could be NGOs or they could be local development agencies that have experience and know the context and the language and together with the local researchers. And what's kind of special with the Empower Us project, at least I've heard, I'm new to research, but is that we have 50,000 euros in addition to the hours and everything for each partner to implement a pilot intervention that is not earmarked. So this has been defined through co-design workshops with local communities.
Want to begin with
we can go to the next one. Yeah, so I'll just present a short one from the Northern Norway case. So even with leaving no one behind as a principle, there are of course challenges with going from participation of several different stakeholder groups, which we have been successful with because they have attended both workshops, Q methods and interviews. Going from that to true inclusion has been challenging in some of the steps. And this is, I'll just mention something that it's because we have so many different contexts, so it's difficult to strike a balance of having generalizable research methods while also making these methods accessible to all stakeholders and citizens from many different groups, such as elderly and youth and immigrants. So one thing we did in the Norway case is that we had alternative methods to the ones that were proposed in the proposal stage. So we had like adaptations to the method, so we could, for example, do walking interviews with elderly who didn't want to do the queue because it seemed too complex. Or we had surveys in different languages for seasonal workers who don't speak either Norwegian nor English. So yeah, that's just one or two examples.
Well, our case is in Cap de Creus, in the north of Catalonia. And, well, the co-design is a living project because you think one about situation of your laboratory, and we found another things that you don't expect. And well, our challenge were the feeling that despite their voices is recognized, is not taken into account in decision-making process, because this area has a very high participation in social proposals. Because there are a fatigue of users in participating in many projects and events without being able to solve their problems. Respect the minorities, we find that they occupy the work roles that are not considered to be part of the productive economy, like domestic work, for example, or hotel and catering sectors in the low positions or in a seasonal aspects. And we found difficulties in reaching them because of their little or no participation in the social of economic fabric. And well, we try to resolve the access of minorities to co-creation processes. In the first instance, through interviews through entities like Red Cross or the Catalan Immersion Program, but also by facilitating tools such as their participant in WhatsApp group. Trying, on one hand, not to force to participate in face-to-face because they are not recognizing like being part of this community. To schedule these problems of not belonging, and in the other hand, maintaining permanent contact in casual environment like the WhatsApp group, sorry. And well, this is how we are trying to leaving no one behind. And the pilot project is about an online, offline product, one in web app, for ocean literacy and proposals of nature-based solutions, that this digital part engage with a physical part, with a seafair, with the stands and activities of ocean literacy in face-to-face, because some of our stakeholders don't believe in a digital sphere, and some other stakeholders don't believe that this punctual activity produce a change in the area, and we try to get the best of every part to get a new rethink and redesign a new pilot project, because this is part of the co-creations issues. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was our last slide. Thank you.
Thank you. In order to keep the time short, I jumped right in. My name's Alex. I'm from the Mehrwissen Secretariat. And I'm happy to have 4 projects with me today. So I'm asking to the stage, please, Hauke from Pamo to join me up here. We have Lennart from Somewhat. Please join us. Holger from Mankoga. And Tobias from Orientate. And while they come up here, please come, take a seat. We're doing a bit of a different format. Okay. I'm rushing. Thank you. We have 4 speakers, so please take a seat. And what we wanted to do is called a fishbowl, where they just spontaneously tell you their experiences with co-design. And just so you all know, as I said, I'm part of the Meerwissen Secretariat. We have these 4 amazing projects running right now. They are the result of our 3rd funding call, where we fund research projects that exist out of a cooperation between a German organization and an African organization. And, oh, the thing left. No, that's great, thanks. With this 3rd call, we did one thing new. We upgraded them, so to speak, to a co-design phase. So we had a 9-month-long funded co-design phase. So we moved from a workshop to actually give them more time to work on their co-design and to co-design their projects. And they are here to tell you their experiences with that phase, both highlights, lowlights, maybe some good examples, maybe some bad ones. Feel free to honestly share, as the previous speakers have done so well as well. So whoever wants to start, please come up, and I'm going to take a seat.
Okay. So I'll start. Hello, everybody. I'm Hauke Reuter from ZMT, Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research in Bremen in Germany. And I'm here for the PAMO project, Participatory Modeling for Nature-Based Solutions, which is us as one partner and partners from Tanzania, Zanzibar Institute of Marine Science, and from Madagascar, University of Toliara, and also the Ministry of Fisheries and Blue Economy. Sorry. Okay, so co-design for us has quite a lot of different facets or levels, and I would, given the time, I would just briefly want to touch 2 of them, and one is on the coordination of the project partners. That's something which actually, to a large extent, was quite straightforward and easy, but one aspect is difficult, was always difficult, and that's the finances. Finances are always in these cases, with the Western partners. So because of legal reasons, and that's always part of a power relationship. So that is something which has to be solved and has to be solved for the future. And the other part is, or the other facet is co-designed with the local stakeholders. And what we had two workshops actually in the co-design phase, and what was extremely important from our part was the communication and communication in local languages. So it's not English, and in Madagascar also not French, but Malagasy. So that's something we don't speak. So it makes it difficult for us, but it makes it extremely easy for the stakeholders to exchange experiences, talk to each other, and come to some kind of common agreement. And that was extremely important for the project, to have this exchange. For us, it meant we had to have translators. Everybody had his personal translator and always whispering in the ears. But that made it for the project, made it much, much easier to come forward. So communication on that part was extremely, extremely important. Just to name 2 things, another thing which might come difficult is extremely deep religious beliefs. We talked a lot about indigenous knowledge, and with the background of beliefs which we know are difficult if you consider them from a scientific background and trying to move forward. In this case, at the moment, we don't know how important they will be and how we will have to, we can cope with that. So that stays an open question, at least for us. So far from our side, just these 3 things, but I don't want to take all the time. So thank you.
All right, I just continue here. I'm Holger Brix from the Helmholtz-Zentrum Herion in Germany, and we are working in the Mankoga project together with colleagues from the University of Ghana in Accra about reforestation of mangroves. And I mean, listening to everything that was said so far and seeing the people so far, I had a few ideas. First, It started out with quite a few old white men, being one myself. And this is also a consideration when you do co-design. Whom do you address? You want a good mix of society. So you go into Ghana, and most representatives and people from different associations, they're all men. So how do you get that other 50% of the population in there? So we were actually actively, and we means the colleagues from Ghana who actually knew how to talk to people, were actively lobbying for getting more women involved in that project, which was not easy, but we're not there at 50%, but we're getting closer. Another aspect is what I just said, the involvement of social scientists, or some people who have a knowledge of local structures. Because there are undertones in the society that you don't get when you come into a new system. I mean, I moved to the United States at some point, and I think it took me 5 years to understand the US. Now, if you go to Africa in a completely different cultural setting, it is even more complicated. So it is really important to have people on board who know a country, who know what's going on, and who can navigate. So then another aspect is, we talked quite a bit about conflict already. Okay, we had conflicts between a government level and a local level, that people from the local level did not feel recognized appropriately by the government level that was involved. But there was also for me, sometimes striking absence of conflict. So we're working with mangroves. If you chop down mangroves, and if you stop that, the people who chop down the mangroves and make a living of it, they lose their livelihood. So I would think there is quite some potential for conflict there. But it took 4 or 5 sessions with people for these conflicts to actually surface, for people really getting into an interaction and being able to voice their concerns. So you need to bring time, and we really appreciate that we had those 9 months before our natural science part of the project started to look into these conflicts. And the very last point that I wanted to make is about sustainability that was brought up before. I think there's a lot of experience, especially in countries of the global south, with people coming in from Europe, from North America, and having great ideas and projects, and then when the funding is over, the project is over. So it is a real struggle, and you have to start thinking from the very beginning, okay, what can we do to make this sustainable, to not be another one of these people who come there, make everyone happy, and then disappear, and leave everything in shambles. So lobbying, and right now we have the UN Ocean Decade of the Oceans, so there are more possibilities to tap into things, and we hope we will get our project sustainable, but this is something that you really need to start thinking about from the very start. That's so far from my side.
Hello, my name is Leonard Chauka from Institute of Marine Sciences, Zanzibar. Our project is called Somewhat. It is about seagrasses and pollution, and it emerged from the reported mortalities in seaweed farms and sponge farms in Zanzibar, and increase in pollution in Nasna Bay in South Africa, and of course in Zanzibar as well. We were able to visit a lot of stakeholders, and I'm happy to see that Dr. Lucas has arrived. We visited a lot of stakeholders in Zanzibar and in South Africa as well, me and him as well. What we learned is that the stakeholders we had before were able to own the project. And another thing is that we were able to expand the sphere of stakeholders. Some of the stakeholders that we didn't mention in the concept note came up. In Zanzibar, for example, we met with those companies that are buying seaweeds, and we didn't know that they are concerned about pollution. So they came in, and several other stakeholders came in. And we were able to have an element of capacity building. I and Lucas were able to harmonize the methodology that are going to be used by the students, capacity building at the level of the students who are going to be supported by the project, and even capacity building at the level of stakeholders, villagers as well. The problem, we met one issue in Zanzibar, not in South Africa. In South Africa, we were well welcomed by the stakeholders. Some of them even invited us for lunch in South Africa. But in Zanzibar, there were some stakeholders, actually very important stakeholders, that in order for them to give us time to talk with, to engage with, they needed some money so that they can give us time. That was an issue that we met with. So there was a difference between South Africa and Zanzibar, where in Zanzibar, actually the government officials, they wanted us to give them money so that they can set a time to talk with. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I have the honor to be the last speaker of this round. I'm Tobias Dolch. I'm working for the Waddensee station of the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany. And I'm here to represent the project Orientate, which is a cooperation between the Alfred Wegener Institute and the University of Sfax in Tunisia. And my experience with the co-design phase is really positive because, well, we were given a certain time and a certain budget to work out a full proposal for this project. Normally, when you have a project idea, you have a look through the literature, you try to make yourself familiar with an area that you don't really know. And in this case, we actually had the chance to go to that area, have a look on site what the circumstances are, what the environmental conditions are. We had a chance to meet our project partners and to do some team building. So the cooperation between us and the project partners, it works really good. So we have a smooth cooperation, and I think the co-design phase definitely helped to get to know each other so that we have this smooth cooperation. Also, as I said before, to get to know the area, because normally I work with seagrass in the Waddensee. I've never worked in the Mediterranean Sea, and I've never been to Tunisia before. And in this case, it was really essential to have a look at the site and to see what you're working on, to come up with a good project idea. I'm grateful that we were given time to work out the project idea. We had 2 workshops involving us with stakeholders. And stakeholders were from the local municipality to NGOs, to the local fishermen, to the local people living there. So it was really a wide range. And as you said before, it was also, for me, a very important experience, how important it is to have these workshops in the native language. In that case, it was Arabic. We also had our personal translators. But I've experienced very lively discussions. People wanted to participate, wanted to share their experience, their knowledge, but they were also shaping the project. They were also formulating their wishes, their needs, what's important for them. And through that, we created a great support and acceptance for the project. Quite often I find it, for example, difficult to get fishermen on board. but here in this project, it's very positive. They're supporting us a lot, and especially in a country where you don't have a database that is, well, let's put it that way. You have some gaps in databases. You don't know much about the coast. You don't know much about coastal habitats or sediment budgets, hydrodynamics, and so on. Especially in that case, you rely on the local knowledge, and that comes primarily from fishermen. They can tell us where seagrass beds were in the past and what the local conditions are at the shore. That helped us a lot, and they narrowed this knowledge gap, so based on their experience. One thing, I would say a lesson learned, after this co-design phase, where you come up with all these wonderful ideas and project ideas and things you want to do, to get actually started, to start the action, the implementation phase should start pretty soon after the co-design phase. Don't have a huge time gap between co-design phase and implementation phase, please. And another thing that remains to be seen, so far we have wonderful, great ideas. Let's see if we can all implement them, if there's enough time to do what we have so far in mind. And yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Those were really inspiring case studies. But please stay here, because now we're going to have, for 10 minutes, a round of questions. And then we're going to go on a break, on a small break, before we go on to the next phase of this gathering. So we have a microphone there. And I'd like to invite all the other people that have come here and spoken before. So I don't know if you have questions written down maybe, or if you remember, but we got some more chairs here.
It's for you.
Oh, okay, I can send. Yes, please. Yeah, don't be shy. Oh, we have the first question there. Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much. Really interesting presentations. I'm Lucy Hunt. I'm from Southwest Ireland, a rural coastal community in County Kerry. And we have a lot of institutes and organisations come to our community to engage with us because we live in one of the most marine biodiverse areas and a real touristic area too. But we suffer from universities coming with lots of funding, and I'm a marine biologist that works in the area full-time, come with lots of funding, don't often engage with the local scientists and do the helicopter science. And we see it happening all over the world, but even in Europe, it's still happening too. So I'd love to know, how do you do those projects and still continue to support the local community? Because it's really important, because like the local community are kind of sick of it. And I'm trying to say, no, this one might be different. And then I also say, no, this is a really good project. It can do really good things for the environment. And then all of a sudden the funding's gone. And so I feel bad trying to get people to give time. And then, you know, it falls because the people aren't supported and we can't continue to fund it.
Good question, difficult. No.
To answer.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay. So very difficult question, or a good question, difficult answer. To add that, from my experience in East Africa, or especially Zanzibar, it's very similar that if you go to villages or send students somewhere, people are at some point reluctant to work with the students or work with the projects because they have worked with different projects before and nothing changes. Yeah. So even if there weren't any promises, so there's always a hope that things they report or problems which are there will change in that process. So at least from our current project, or from my perspective, we try to go back project funding is short, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Sometimes I work longer in the region, try to take it up with new projects. And for at least for our Mehrwissen project, this is an extremely important part to do capacity building, to really involve people, and to have some kind of legacy afterwards, and leave things if we have to go. We hope not.
I don't know.
But it's a common problem which can only be solved if you really work for a long time in one region.
I don't know if anybody else would like to answer that question. The ladies over there.
Yeah,
I'm diversifying a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think it's also difficult. And I think the aim with involving these local host organizations and also researchers from the areas of the coastal labs that we are working in was to ensure that something will be left behind after the project ends, and the capacity building of the local hosts, in addition to those stakeholders that attend the workshops, is also an important part of this. Also, having a funding that isn't earmarked to any specific things that we are defining ahead of coming there also can help making the outcome more legitimate and maybe more lasting, because locals are part of defining where to spend the money and what's important to them. So I think, yeah, that's maybe
Thank
one
you.
way.
Yeah, maybe move on to another question. Really? Yes.
I can speak really loud.
Okay, speak loud. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks to the panel. My name is Louis Celia from the Climate Service Center, Germany. Maybe a comment, if you can. Maybe the language is wrong. Science shouldn't leave something behind, but the community should upfront decide what they want from their work. So they need to take and make sure they get what they want. So I missed your name. I think you should be on the panel, actually, and talk about the local issues when it comes to co-design. But what do you think about the communities upfront deciding, this is what we want, and we don't want you to leave before we have that, rather than science leaving something behind?
Well, I think this is exactly the point why we're doing co-design in the way I understand it. I mean, I can see that local communities tire out easily if that happens too many times. And this is why our approach was to involve local scientists who know the people at least better than we do, from the beginning. And in that co-design phase, also to listen and try to make the project not the project of the scientists, but the project of us together, the people who are involved in the co-design process. And that will make it last. And even if the outcomes are sometimes a bit weird, I mean, one of the suggestions that we got was to have a Miss Mangrove pageant, which is not exactly what I studied for in university, but, you know, I mean, if things work like that, then yeah, why not? And that way you get people on board to make it their project.
Just one additional comment. I think it's not a question of the wording. It's a question of how long you can be there and how long the interaction is. So the common problem is it's just 2 years, it's 3 years. And then from the project side, it ends. And what will happen afterwards? And independently, how we call it, it's one of the biggest problems we just have with co-designs, with working with stakeholders. And then maybe a new project comes with different people, different approach, and that usually does not really work. That's at least our experience.
Thank you. Another question?
feel like Ireland might be taking over. My name's Noreen, I know Lucy. No, I just had a question. Well, first of all, just say thank you. I really, really enjoyed your talks and your presentations. It was really inspiring. I'm with the Irish Ocean Literacy Network, and we try to bring together stakeholders from any background in our network. But at the Ocean Literacy Dialogues yesterday, now it was more to do with maybe education, but we were talking about barriers to engaging people. And the group I was part of was looking at these challenges and opportunities. And the biggest one that came out was government. So we just felt that of all the other challenges, if the government is behind something, then you can probably overcome the challenges. Because if you have government backing, and even you talk about short-term funding there, and that's a huge struggle because people are competing for funding, local, people coming into areas, projects finishing, there's no longevity or, exit plan. But I'd just like to know, have you guys, has anyone any examples of where government were actively involved, and have you seen a difference where that happened in your projects?
Yes, I can say for this case on Brazil, and the government was involved from the co-design as the local community, and understand their voice have the same importance. And I think answer for you, Nari, on this, answer all the other questions is from my experience is we don't have to decide anything. So when we start with our co-design and building trust with the community, thanks for bringing all of that, because that's all over the world, as you mentioned. And the first thing we discussed with them and goes to the government. This project, you end in 3 years. But we want to build trust for longer. How can we decide that together? What do you expect from your point of view? And they said that is not only through the project. So if you can afterwards meet once a year and continue until another project comes, and then came to the government, because they said, well, there is a problem here. The researchers already brought some money, but once this money ended, can you support this interaction? So we created a small consule with representative from all the stakeholders. And the idea is keeping that moving forward. Now that the project went, the government will assume this for a while until we can have new funding. And that was decided for the community.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, yes.
It's okay. Yes? Okay, yeah, I can just speak a little bit of an example from the Norwegian case. So since the local host also has contacts with the county, and I guess it's not the national government, but and also as researchers we had that, so we invited them to come and take part of the co-design workshops and then learn from them, and then trying to find synergies with calls that they are going to fund later on after the project. So they were very interested in what processes we're doing for co-creation and how they could also maybe potentially implement it in their work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So those are 10 minutes. We will have another chance to keep discussing all these important topics. We're going to go on a 10-minute health break, so you can go to the toilet. But then when we come back, we're going to be working in groups, and we really want to listen to all the participants' voices as well. Thank you, everyone. No, pero mira, bueno, cuando vienen los working groups, yo tenía unas slides. Ah, vale, entonces lo dejamos. Mira, ahí está el half break. Okay. See you back at 5 to 4, please.
The other person that I had made those slots for, so
Charlie.
if you're okay with it.
No lo subas.
Ah, esa todavía no.
Claro.
Pero podemos dejar esta.
Sí, lo que pasa es que hemos cambiado.
Ah, hemos cambiado el horario, entonces no.
Entonces no, esta última la dejamos.
Ya,
si querés.
ok.
Gracias.
A ti.
¿Y el micrófono? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. So, yeah. I know that all of you are engaged in some really valuable conversation. Yes? Thank you. Okay, so no, this is the point actually of this session. We're going to get in 3 groups. You can see that we have 3 main topics there. And the people from these 3 groups will have the chance of having like a smaller group discussion. The 3 groups will be facilitated, and your facilitators, that are some of the organizers, have some questions pre-prepared for you. But of course, it's the chance that you have to bring up some of your concerns or comments, etc. So we have like 25 minutes to work in these 3 groups, and at the end of it, we're going to select some representatives of each group to come up here, and we're going to do a fishbowl dynamic for discussing the main findings and insights of each group. So we're going to get a chance to actually speak. So I welcome you to choose the group that you think fits more with you. Sorry, is that inclusive co-design? Okay, so we have inclusive here. We have capacities there. Yes, and here we have impact. So impactful co-design. So choose the one that you feel more comfortable with, or the one that has less people in it. Yes? Thank you.
But it's also an agreement between everybody, because thanks for repeating that. Quickly, one example, that uses our behavior. 2 years ago, we organized the Ocean Salons in Brazil. But we almost had no one on the group. So a few groups, like the strategic engagement, said, are you not coming? And I got 3 times the answers in different moments, like, oh, sorry, it's too far, it's too long, the flight, and the cost is too high. They said, well, come to my work. Because if I want to be part of anything, I need to travel to Europe and spend a lot of money. So that is a kind of agreement that we need.
Okay, I want to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes to wrap up.
Almost no one on the boat. And then it's a change of behavior.
Yes. No me. Sí, entonces podemos apagar ahí y después voy a necesitar. O sea, que dejamos No, quedan. Esa es al final y esa es solo si terminamos. Okay, we have 1 more minute. So I would like you to choose our representative to come and speak in the front and give a summary of what was discussed. 1 for each group. Okay, so I'd like to invite 1 representative from each group to come forth. So we do have to wrap up. Yes, please come forth. Yes. I mean, you. Yes, and we're going to be asking some questions as well. So maybe it's better to come up here. Yeah. Hello. Okay. So we will have a microphone, but we're going to be presenting the insights from each group, but then we're going to be asking questions and having a bit of a discussion too. Yes? Okay. So please, let's listen now to the Inclusive Co-Design Group. How do you ensure the inclusion of relevant stakeholders in co-design processes? And you have around 3 minutes to speak.
Thanks, Gabby. Does that work? Yep. Perfect. Okay. So thanks to everyone who contributed to this discussion over here on inclusive challenges, or challenges getting people included in co-creation. We started off thinking, I think very much most of us thinking about our projects and reflecting on problems, challenges that we've had in including people in our projects. And we very quickly moved up to like co-creation in terms of policy and white papers. And so our key challenges that we came up with reflected everything from language barriers and things that came up this morning, getting people involved across cultural barriers and taboos. And then we went through, valuing how do you value people's time for co-creation? You haven't always got a massive budget for that, but it should be valued. And that, in fact, the donors need to also value that. If they want things co-created and they want to fund co-creation projects, that actually we need to fund that. And that actually valuing people's time is different to asking for an incentive to participate in a survey, for instance. We talked about ensuring, we talked a lot, especially when it came to policy and the white papers, about ensuring balanced groups of participants involved with those creation of white papers. Because although in theory, you know, equality and diversity and inclusion is a huge sort of buzz topic, in reality, the people who get the power in the room or invited in the first place aren't always balanced in terms of regional diversity or global north, global south, or gender balances as well, amongst other things. So we then moved on to try, in our last 2 minutes really, to look at solutions or ideas of overcoming these challenges. And first of all, there was the thought that donors need to really appreciate and be empathetic to the needs of co-creation. It needs more time, and it needs budget, and things don't always end up how you'd expect. But also, as people designing these processes, we need careful co-creation of balance and power in the room, which we all know as facilitators, but it's difficult to action sometimes in reality. But also that there should be government support for inclusion, so if they want a white paper or they want people to come to a conference, that actually the co-creation does sometimes involve people crossing boundaries or going through countries, so making visas is, for instance, more accessible. We did also touch on other things like online participation, obviously can be effective to try and include like small nations maybe, or people who can't get those visas. But we talked about many other things, budgeting time for sort of long-term legacy involvement. We didn't talk about these points, but these are things that came up as well. I guess also there was we touched very briefly on one idea of like a changing culture and behavior amongst those of us from the global north, that sometimes if we're invited to do things that maybe we should really reflect on whether it's our place. We know somebody who's able to do it in somewhere else, to take our place to redress the balance. I think, is that within time, Gabby?
Yes.
Did I miss anything? Can I just ask the group? Everyone didn't miss anything key? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, well done.
Oh, can I just say, we've also got a list for people if they want to hear more about this or follow it up, then there's a list with people can sign up.
So now we're talking about impactful co-design, how to strengthen co-design for sustainable solutions that deliver the required impacts.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, yeah, we were talking about impactful co-design, and we had actually 3 questions. The first one was impacts. What impacts have you achieved or witnessed as a result of a co-design project? And yeah, we had actually different kind of impacts. First of all, in Portugal, from a project, there were bottom-up goals, so goals which also came from the community, and there were less political authority included. And another impact was trust of the community and the involvement for actually 1 decade, which is really quite long. It's also from Portugal. Then there was another impact about the shared power from different kind of international platforms. And then we had in Brazil a case with different formats for communicative outputs. I think it was video formats, right? And we had a project, it was actually the first Meerwissen project about marine data handling. There was introduced an information system in East Africa about this kind of data handling as an impact. In Norway, in a project. There were more functions to local communities, for example, and there were for the restoration of the kelp forest were together, or the kelp forests were together restored with divers and also tourists. Also the fishermen have been involved. I think that was another kind of project in Norway. And another good point was increased ownership. So Leonard also mentioned that in Zanzibar that there was an increased ownership of the local community, that also there was a sense of being heard as a local community, so that it's not only an ownership from the scientists but also an ownership from the local community, right? And another person said that for a kind of different project in, I think it was in New Zealand, that the sense of project ownership among the stakeholders is quite important and was an impact.
Thank you.
The second question was about the barriers and challenges that exist.
We need to summarize as much as possible.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
For impactful co-design, and it's quite time intensive, the co-design processes. Then what we already have heard, it's also a gender issue, so most of the people involved are men. So how could we get the women involved in this, in the projects? And then it's a funding issue, as always. The barriers are quite often to understand who needs to be involved and when. And to come back to the funding, it's quite often short term, 1 to 3 years, and then we leave, and the local community stand by their own. And to build up the partnerships of equal power is clear. It's a big challenge, and some recommendations how we can achieve quite a more impactful co-design process at the let's so-called science policy society interface is to stop to take decisions only for 1 year. So it's the political impacts. That we have to look for long-term issues. So I look for myself, at least I advise the ministry. And so also to include all stakeholders as beneficiaries of the funding processes, that it's an iterative process, this co-design process, and we have to repeat the stakeholder involvement as long as we can do this. And then there's intersectionality, so also that we include all different kind of science, transdisciplinary sciences, all different kind of stakeholders, also the private sector. Quite often it's forgotten, and also the indigenous peoples and local communities are involved as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great work. Now let's move to capacities for co-design. How to develop capacities at the Science Policy Society interface that enable evidence-based decision-making and needs-based action.
Thank you. So I have the honor to present the results of our small yet highly efficient capacity group. We had also 3 guiding questions, which I'll try to summarize super quick. The first one revolved around the lack of capacities, or which capacities were lacking. So this draws upon what was presented in the Meerwissen Espresso presentation. And our own experiences. Major points were like a deep understanding of the concepts of co-design and how to actually apply them and being aware of their importance early on. A lack of knowledge regarding regulations, how authorities work, and how the different stakeholder groups work. So this refers not only to finding a common language mother tongue-wise, but also terminologies and concept-wise. Hierarchies were mentioned, that catching stakeholder groups are important and they need to be also included early on. And in relation to all of this, why projects might have failed in the past is like the lack of trust or the misuse of trust, the lack of good communication, and maintaining and adjusting a joint vision. For question 2, which capacities were clearly demonstrated to be functional and important and successful? So persistence was mentioned and sustainability basically, so a constant interaction at a level that everyone can interact with. So having, for instance, technologies in place that are easy to use and not 5 different tools to communicate, to meet, to manage the project and so on, but maybe sometimes a WhatsApp group will do. Identifying the right groups to engage and also keeping that an iterative process as it might change throughout the co-design and the project. Keep that space and time to understand local people's realities. I think that was clearly mentioned in one of the presentations that conflicts emerged and surfaced only in the 5th meeting. Not only conflicts, but maybe also what people are expecting from the project might not be voiced in the first 1 or 2 meetings, but later on. And in order to hear and listen to those voices, constantly give room to let those voices be heard. And then we run short on time, so stakeholder groups which may lack capacities, or which could be strong in certain capacities. We figured that there may be inter-stakeholder connections and power hierarchies, so some stakeholders may be closer to others or to each other early in the project on and being aware of it. And again, keeping knowledge or assume that the level of knowledge is rather low and catching everyone like from early on the beginning. And I hope I didn't miss anything from the group. If so, please jump at me. And one final thing, in terms of capacity building and co-design, we have a really cool course developed, which is supposed to be launched. If you want to learn about it, come and find me. We have a QR code, and you can express your interest in joining that course. So,
Okay,
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thanks everyone. I know you're all working really hard, and I know that I'm rushing everyone, and I'm sorry to be in this position, but we don't have a lot of time for the discussion. But maybe we can have like 2 or 3 more comments from the audience of insights, discussions, questions. Yes?
I would like to ask to reflect on what are the costs. Do I need? Hello, thank you. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. What are the costs of doing this? Going this way of co-design? What do we sacrifice in the process?
Does anybody want to answer that? Okay. No, you have more experience. Come on.
I would say we sacrifice to have a quicker paper. We sacrifice to have our voice defined. We sacrifice the business as usual way of doing science. And I'm not criticizing saying that, but then to come back to our reflection that we need to have. What science do we need for the future we want? So maybe we need to start to change things in the way we do things. And I personally, for obvious reason that I was there, saying I do trust that if the co-design takes longer, but we go much further.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the long-term costs like are lower. Short term might be more costly, but then it's worth it.
Thank you very much, and it has been very interesting to participate in this session and to reflect on one of these groups. And I'm sorry if I missed something, but I was just wondering what will be the result of this common exercise? Probably if there will be a report or a common, what will be the end product of this reflection that we did together now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So David will answer that.
No, that's okay. And if any of my co-organisers want to jump in as well. But thank you very much for all of your work that you've done here with us today. We'll take it all on board. We want to come up with a white paper out of it, that we'll also try and publish an article out of it maybe. And we were hoping that it would get integrated into the final drafts of the challenge papers, but that's already been done and they'll be announced at this conference. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add? Sorry, just 1 second, I'll come around the room.
Last question, please.
No, this was just a response. I think
okay.
we were Empower Us. We were looking at what challenges might come up, and if there are like significant discussion points that haven't been touched on elsewhere, we're going to talk to other inclusion workshops running and see whether we want to write a little summary with them.
I might as well make my announcement
Yeah.
now. Sorry,
Can
because
you-
there was one thing connected.
Can you turn on the slideshow, please, Eduardo?
Yeah, so one thing I forgot, sorry, is that the project that I'm representing today, Prep for Blue, following this conference, we'll release calls for pilot action proposals that will encourage groups to put the co-design practices that we've been discussing today into action, specifically to align them with the citizen engagement targets of the EU's Mission Ocean and Waters. So everybody in the room today will be eligible to apply for these, and I will email you can keep an eye on our website, or otherwise everyone who's registered, I'll email the details of the grants when they come out literally in the next couple of weeks to your email addresses. If anyone has snuck in here without registering, you can write your email address on a post-it and give it to me, or on here, please. Afterwards, yeah. But so that's another way that we'll try and implement what we've discussed today in terms of actually getting it piloted afterwards. So yes.
Thank you.
Just people in the room that are going to be applicable for this funding?
Everybody who attended any of the 4 Prep for Blue satellite events over these few days. Yeah.
And although it has to be European country centric, it doesn't have to be European country researchers.
No, absolutely.
It's good. So thanks everyone. Lots of valuable insights here. There's still a little bit more to do. Okay. So I'd like to invite Dr. Edem Mahu. She's a senior lecturer from the University of Ghana, and she has been participating on the white paper on Challenge 9, and she's going to say a few words on that. Edem, please. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Yes, so I'm here as one of the co-chairs for the white paper on Challenge 9. And I'll talk briefly about the Ocean Decade Vision 2030 process. We all know that the ocean has 10 challenges that it is trying to address up to some extent by the time that the decade comes to an end in 2030. And the Vision 2030 process kind of seeks to come out with a pathway for measuring progress that we make as far as these challenges are concerned. And within the decade, the Ocean Decade framework, there are 10 challenges, as I already said. And these white papers that we have been talking about a lot are like the outputs of the Vision 2030 process. And for the white paper that I chaired, that is on Challenge 9. Challenge 9 seeks to ensure comprehensive capacity development for all. And when we started developing the white paper, some of the things that we wanted to, or we took into consideration was, first of all, who is contributing to this white papers, generally all the white papers. So that is where the co-design actually also came in. And so we had to make sure that there was at least a balanced representation of the expert groups, taking into consideration geographies, so the global north, the global south, but also we looked at gender, we looked at disciplines, and then we also looked at intergenerational representation, making sure that there are young people also as members of the expert team. And we tried to also identify, for capacity, we looked at what the needs are. First of all, who the users of ocean science capacity are. So we identified 4 groups: the scientists, we identified resource users and managers, and also we identified educators, those who help raise awareness as far as policy and decision makers. So these were the main groups that we identified. And for each of these groups, we tried to look at what the capacity needs were. And so if you go into the white paper, you'll see the different capacity needs that these different groups require. In terms of the scientists, we looked at things like representation, we looked at infrastructure needs, and we also looked at other skills that needs to be balanced geographically or globally to ensure that we are all able to contribute to the decade. Yes. And then, aside just the constitution of the experts panel, we also wanted to make sure that we include a lot of voices in the white papers as much as possible. And so the white papers went for the public review process, where we got a lot of feedback from different groups globally. We have incorporated this feedback into the now final, it's still in the draft stage, though, white papers which have just been published recently. And there's going to be an opportunity to still contribute or make input into those white papers. So for my white paper, which is on Challenge 9, there's going to be a session on that on the 12th. And each of the white papers, there will be a session on that. And the idea is to still get a lot of people make inputs into this white papers. And so the discussions and everything after the presentations, the talk, will be focused on the white papers. Thank you very much.
So you're all invited to attend on the 12th to learn more about this. Thank you so much, Adam. Yeah, challenging times. Co-design is not absolutely perfect or flawless. There's a lot to learn. Personally, I've noticed that when I started doing participatory design, there was a profound change in me as a practitioner. So it's a process of growing as well. I want to wrap up a lot of the discussions that have been had today. Just a reminder that sustainable change in the long term, we need to work, yes, on the technical aspects, new policy, maybe new ways of doing, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. If that's not founded, like the foundation of that is the community and the relationships, genuine, long-lasting relationships. And if we can work with the community, we can do lasting change that is influencing some cultural aspects, maybe changing some mindsets towards more sustainable practices. I also want to just mention what are the things that are not co-design. So we have a summary there, but it's not throwing out professional expertise. I mean, professional experience has to go alongside lived experience. to understand together. So sometimes you have to, keep your mind really open and learn some things and be ready to learn a lot more things. Co-design is not too expensive to consider, as it was asked before. We pay now to avoid paying later. Co-design is also not ignoring evidence of what actually works right now, what has been done by traditional or indigenous communities for a long time. Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom there, and maybe they are doing things right. It's just that, with colonialism and some market trends, that has changed. It's also not having workshops to ask people's opinions and excluding them from critical decision making. Maybe a lot of professionals, a lot of scientists, and very few people with lived experience. And it's definitely not tokenism. I also want to share with you a project that I lead, that it's about methodologies for participatory design in environmental conservation. Design for Conservation, it's in a web repository. You can go there and for free download all the tools, and you can modify them and adapt them to your needs. And finally, I acknowledge that I had to cut a bunch of presentations short. So I do encourage you to go and reach out to the other speakers and to, make some friendships here, synergies, etc. And thank you everyone for your participation. Gracias a todos por venir. ¿Sí?
Can I just say thank you very much to Gabriella for moderating today. You did a fantastic job.
We have one announcement more that we have. Do you want to say something? Yes. Picture, yes. But, okay, we have one more announcement that has been asked to make about a session that it's upcoming, that it's related to this one, right? Yeah. So if you can very briefly, in a second, talk about that. And then we have a picture.
We just wanted, hi everyone, we just wanted to remind you about this scoping, talking about co-design. With the Belmont Forum, we want to co-design also this funding program that is being led by ANR, the Research Foundation of France. And so this is about Oceans 2, and we want to co-design this program with all of the researchers, and we really welcome your experience, and the scoping workshop is going to be tomorrow. Just wanted to.
Can everyone who was on stage today come for a picture, please?
Can we just confirm what time it is tomorrow? Because you can't see the bottom. Do you know what time? Where? That's gone. Sorry? 1 till 5. There. Oh, there you go. 1:50. 1:50.